Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited to talk about this movie. So, this is one of those I remember because there's like a lot of Disney movies that I've like seen over the years. I actually don't really own most of them on like DVD or VHS, only like a couple of them. And this is my second time seeing the movie, so I'm assuming like younger me probably saw this at like a friend's house or something. I wouldn't be surprised because I know I've definitely seen it before. But anyway, I was at my local Goodwill, and it feels like almost every time I go there, or every other time, I usually find some Disney movie. And it ends up being, oh, the price has changed now, or they went up a bit, but I don't mind because it's really nice kind of just collecting these on DVD. I'm just still surprised someone gave away their like special edition of The Lion King because there's like new stuff on here. And that's the version I'm going to be specifically talking about. There's a new song. It's not like a super amazing song, but there's a new song, and I was like, I don't remember this song at all, and that's because I've never seen the special edition. But I'll talk about it when we get there. I don't know if there was like any other differences. I'm assuming, because I think this came out in like the 2000s. Not the movie itself. I know the movie's from the Disney Renaissance in like the 90s, but I think this one's from like 1994, if I remember correctly. Let me see. I don't know if I got that right. Yeah, 1994. But I think the special edition's from like the early 2000s. I think like 2003 or something. Um, which was also kind of funny to me. I figured that out very quickly, actually, just because I was watching the commercials and that are like, the start of a DVD. And one of them was for the Santa Claus 2, and one of them was for Finding Nemo, and I was like, oh yeah, we did live in a world where Finding Nemo didn't exist for a bit. Anyway, this is one of those movies where it's like I knew it was good. I knew that I liked it. I wasn't like super hyped when I found it or anything. I was like, oh cool, it's The Lion King. I'm gonna buy it because I'm trying to buy all these Disney movies I'm finding at Goodwill. And then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, this is peak. Like I know I say this a lot for when I'm talking about movies on here where I'm like, oh, I watched this movie that I liked and then I forgot how good it is. But I like genuinely feel that this time. This was really good. And it helps that it had been a while since I've seen it. So like I remembered a lot of the big stuff that happens, like character deaths and like betrayals and whatever, but I there was some stuff that I'd forgot about. I think part of the reason I really liked this movie was the pacing, where it has enough time for like there's like there's at least like five comic relief characters in this movie, and you got like a bunch of songs in there and stuff, and the movie makes sure to have time like enough time for all of those things. It never feels rushed to me, but at the same time, it keeps like a relatively fast pace of going from like the next scene to the next scene to the next scene. And I think that just works really well. It's like a perfect speed to me. I think when I had originally watched this movie, I had thought that the beginning felt kind of a little slower compared to everything else, but I think it works because it like sets up all the characters, and now watching it a second time, I feel like it's a good pace, and if anything I feel the opposite where I'm like, oh, it was shorter than I thought it was. I mean, I think even for the movie as a whole it's like 90 minutes, which isn't too bad. But for being so short, because let me see, that's like what, like an hour and a half or something? Oh, why is it giving me the soundtrack? Hold on a minute. One sec. Okay, yeah, that's like an hour and a half. It's not. I did actually look it up. Um, oh man, I forgot that the live action remake existed. I forgot it because the characters aren't animated in it and they just look like hyper realistic, so it just looks boring to me. Um, yeah, apparently the remake, which I know I sometimes. Wait, I actually don't remember when this is getting posted. Never mind. There's a video I have at some point where I talk about one of the live action remakes. And I say something like, oh, yeah, I watch these sometimes, but not in theaters. But like if I see them on streaming or whatever, I don't want to watch. This movie was so good that I already want to say I will not watch the remake, live action remake of The Lion King. This animated version was so good. I don't want another version of this movie. But yeah, apparently the live action version is like 2 hours, and I'm thinking like that's gonna probably just ruin the pacing or something. Oh yeah, and I will get into my notes. I promise. I'm just talking about things related to this movie. There's a musical for The Lion King. When I was looking up the runtime for the movie, the musical popped up as well. I've seen the musical. My aunt, I think it was my aunt or one of my cousins or something, took me to see it when I was younger. Apparently that's 2.5 hours. Damn. But the musical is good. So let me change my statement. The animated version is really good. I know I said I don't need another version of this movie. The musical I'm fine with. It was actually really fun. I just meant I don't need a live action version. The live action remake of this movie. I never need to see it. I'm good. You're not gonna get me to see it. Okay, that's what I meant. Oh, and then there is a sequel. I think there's at least one DVD sequel. Because when I had Disney Plus, I think I was originally like watching a bunch of the live action sequels. Um, where that one kind of reminded me of like Romeo and Juliet a little bit. I don't really remember my opinion on it. Probably that I thought. Sorry, clearing my throat. It's the morning when I'm recording this, but I'm also like way too excited to talk about this movie. Um, I probably thought it was either okay or good. I'd have to like watch it again at some point. I don't know. I wouldn't mind checking it out. I do like that with the ending of this movie, it does kind of leave the opening for a sequel because I forgot this movie ends with like Simba's daughter being. I mean, you don't know that it's the daughter. You just know, oh, there's a baby, but the daughter being born at the end, and it basically it fits with the whole circle of life thing, which is cool. Um, but that also sets up a potential sequel, and then the daughter's the main character of the sequel. But yeah, I completely forgot it ends that way, but I like that it basically bookends. Like, it's the same thing that happens at the beginning where, like, you have the full circle of life song and Simba being born and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna finally get into my notes. I forgot there's so many other things related to this movie, and they all happen to be things that I had seen already. Okay, so the opening with the sun rising, I gotta say, one of my favorite animated openings of all time. I mean, it's just so iconic in general. Like, you see it and like, yeah, it's The Lion King. But I think it feels different in when you're seeing it like actually as part of the movie. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just think that's so cool. Like, as an opening, there's something about it too. It could just be because it's like the sun rising over the land or something that kind of made me think of like the beginning part of 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's all of the like the nature shots. But I mean, in that movie, there's no music or sound or anything at that point. But I do love the opening song here. And just like especially the vocals as the sun's rising in that opening, even though I don't understand what they're singing about, which I gotta look up at some point, like what the lyrics mean and stuff. It's really cool, and then you get the whole song of like the circle of life. The song itself, but like the scene just feels so, um, what's the right word? Majestic, I want to say. I feel like that's a word I don't really use a lot to describe things, but that's kind of just the vibe I was feeling it was giving off. I love that there's no dialogue. Like, if you'd never seen the movie or any of the trailers, like if someone just kind of put this on for you or whatever, and you get to that part, you don't even know that the characters are talking animals. You just see all of these animals around and stuff. As they're going to Pride Rock, and then having that ending with the drum beat, and then it cuts to like the opening title, like it just appears on the screen. That's a great way to end it as well. That's like one of my favorite sequences in the movie. I mean, I do love the whole thing that they're like talking animals and stuff. Those kind of movies are fun and everything. Which it's interesting. I was thinking about that because I had watched the live action Aladdin movie which depending when this gets posted, because I pre-record and post so many things I have in order, you'll hear me talk about like talking animals and stuff in there. It's kind of interesting, at least when I'm thinking of Disney movies, how I view talking animal characters depending on like if they're the sidekick where they're in like a world with a bunch of like humans or something, um compared to, I mean in Aladdin, Boo doesn't talk but Iago does, but I kind of touch on the whole like talking animal in a world of humans thing, and it's like a completely different feeling of like how seriously I take it compared to all of the characters are talking animals. I don't know. Anyway, I forgot that the first lines in the movie actually are from Scar. I don't remember at this point what the lines were. I sadly did not get to watch this movie in one sitting. I do want to say that. I actually had gotten through most of it, and that's unfortunately something that happens when I watch DVDs now, because like I have Mondays and Fridays, but mostly just Mondays, where I'm able to watch whatever on our TV that has the DVD player. We have like one DVD player. Um, but then if anybody comes home on those days, it's like then I have to stop watching the movie and I have to resume it later. I thought I'd be able to finish the movie on a Friday, so I was already waiting a week, and then I wasn't able to, and I had to wait till like the following Mondays, like today, to finish it. And that's kind of a bummer, like in general, to like have to stop a movie and then try to remember everything when you like watch it again. Actually, the movie was so good, I was half tempted to literally just watch it from start to finish because it was just so fun. But I was really bummed I had to stop The Lion King, because not just because I'm like forgetting things from the beginning outside of my notes, but also I was so invested in it originally that I didn't want to stop. I was actually really bummed. But then it was fine when I picked it up. I was like, yeah, I get to go back in. And it was actually like sort of at an okay point where I paused. I got all the way into the movie up to the point where Nala, it's like after the time skip and Nala's trying to go find Simba and she finds him and there it's like it was like right before the song Can You Feel the Love Tonight. So it was like sort of an okay point to pause, but it was like so close to the end of the movie. I probably had like 20 minutes left or something. I was like, mm. So yeah, that's why if I'm like forgetting things from like the beginning of the movie and my notes and stuff, it's because I had to wait like a week to finish the movie. Um, but yeah, I thought Jeremy Irons was a good choice for Scar. I know I've seen him in things. I know I've heard his voice before. I can't remember right now like what else I've seen him in, but now I was like so impressed with his like voice acting for this character. Um, he sounds like he's having fun with it of playing a villain anyway. That I'm just like, damn, I need to go see like what else he's in, honestly. But it's especially the points when his character's like very, just like Scar's a cool character. He's like very sarcastic and manipulative. Where like compared to other lions and stuff, like he knows he can't beat Mufasa in a fight, but he's very like smart and scheming and stuff. Like he can't, he's like not physically strong enough to kill Mufasa, and he knows this, so he has to get Simba out of the way of being like cause like I completely forgot his whole conversation with Mufasa at the beginning, like, oh, you didn't come to see baby Simba, and you can tell immediately Scar's like very bitter because he would have been the next one to be king, so now he needs to get Simba out of the way. um I mean, even if he, now I'm thinking about it, even if he hadn't killed Mufasa and if Simba didn't exist, Scar eventually would have been king anyway, but it's more of like he wants to be king faster. And it ends up being really easy for him because he just needs to start like manipulating Simba as a child. I think I actually have more notes about that. Yeah, a little bit later. I actually don't have a ton of notes for this movie because I think because I was so focused on enjoying the movie, but I also just didn't have like a ton of stuff to write about. Anyway, so now we can go back to the thing of this being the special edition of the movie. So there is a new song, like it does say on the bottom of the picture of the movie right here, where it's like featuring an all new song. It's this song that Zazu I forgot about Zazu as a character, to be honest. I remembered him more in the musical now that I think about it, because um, damn, now I wish I could watch the musical again. A lot of the characters from what I remember were puppets. I like very clearly remember Zazu as a puppet, which I thought was really fun. So that's kind of how I view him more in my brain. And then I was thinking about that when I started the movie because if you're on the DVD, it's like 3D for some reason. It's like a 3D version of Zazu and it looks really weird and you can't skip over it and he like talks for a while and then you get the options for your movie. But anyway, he has a song in this one for the special edition which is called The Morning Report. Um, it's kind of catchy. It's like a short little song. I could see why it's not in the original movie or anything. And I doubt that the addition of the song is what makes the movie an hour and a half. It's like very short. I could see why they cut it, but it's nice to hear it here. I could honestly go with or without it, honestly. And I mean, there's like a whole little scene with it too, where Mufasa doesn't really care about Zazu's report, and then just has Simba like pounce on him as well. I do like the song or like the scene just because of that. I I remember that Simba is with his dad a lot, and I like their relationship honestly, where sometimes they could be like very silly and they spend time with each other and stuff, and then other times they have to be very serious, like when Mufasa's cheering him out later. I just really like their dynamic, and I like you get plenty of scenes of that, of them together during Simba's childhood, you know, before Mufasa's actually killed off. I think it makes it stronger for later on when, you know, Simba has been like running away from his guilt for years and there's like the ghost version of his dad or whatever that shows up and he's like, you forgot about me. So I think having those scenes where it's established that they're very close at the beginning kind of strengthens things for the movie later. Um, but yeah, it's like a cool little song. But I didn't know it was like exclusive to the special edition. So I was watching and I got to that scene and I was like, I don't remember this song. Not that I remembered every song in the entire movie. Like I forgot. There's like another little short one, I guess. It's the one where Timon is and Pumbaa they're having to do a distraction to the hyenas. It's like so short. I'm not. It's only like a couple of lines. It's just like a goofy little bit, honestly. Which even stuff with that fits with the movie as well, where you can have a short little bit like that and it doesn't distract anything from the movie because it's so short, I guess. But yeah, that was a song I forgot about too. But yeah, apparently Morning Report is exclusive to the special edition. Let's see what else. I'm actually glad that Zazu is a character, even though he's like kind of funny. I forgot that he's voiced by the guy that plays Mr. Bean. I didn't even recognize his voice or anything until I was in the credits, and I was like, "Oh wait, I know who that person is." You know, um, like he is a cool little character. I think I found him annoying originally, but actually no, I still find him a little bit annoying. I don't know, but not in a way where I'm like, "Oh, I hate this character" or anything. But just more of like he's just there, I guess. I mean, he's only really there at like the beginning and then a little bit towards the end, and that's kind of about it. Like he has less plot relevancy once Simba like grows up and runs away and stuff. Um, but his interactions with like child Simba and Nala are kind of funny at the beginning. Like he says like, "Oh yeah, you two are gonna have to marry each other someday," and Simba and Nala are both grossed out. And I got to that point in the movie, and then I remember the stuff with "Can You Hear the Love Tonight," um, which is also a pretty cool song. I just have that part of the movie, that's that song kind of in my mind because that's where I like started with was watching the movie today. Um, and then you get "Just Can't Wait to Be King," and I feel like out of the songs, I, I mean, I'm assuming "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" was probably supposed to be like the big song of the movie. I don't know. I mean, you get a version of it by Elton John in the credits, which I want to touch on that for a second. I mean, I do like the version in the movie itself. I don't know who the singer is for that one. But I'm a little sad that Elton John singing it is only for the credits. I mean, I feel like that fits, but you know, I guess it's because I really like Elton John, but I didn't remember that he had written like a bunch of the songs for the movie because the movie has like really good songs. Like I don't think there's a ton of them, in terms of like the full length ones. I will say, um, but they're all really good. So I'm okay with that. I feel like when it comes to musicals or like Disney, well, not musicals, but like Disney musicals, I can say. or stuff like that. I'd prefer if a movie had less songs if it means they're like all very memorable, if that makes sense, rather than like a ton of songs and then having a bunch of them be kind of just whatever. But yeah, I feel like Just Can't Wait to Be King is one of the like really big songs from the movie. I think it's fun, honestly. It gives me the same vibe as Under the Sea and The Little Mermaid, honestly. Um, but I love how during that specific song, the visuals of everything just become like 50 times more colorful. And it's a really fun song in general. And I like how the song's kind of justification story is basically like, oh, the kids need to ditch Sazu. So they're singing this whole song and whatever, and then all these animals are there, and then they all leave, and that's how they end up running away. I think that's part of the fun with this movie, is just kind of how the tone works with it. Where you can have like a super fun moment like that, and then it'll immediately go to something much more serious. Or sometimes you have the reverse where it's like, you know, you have Mufasa die later on, and then it immediately goes to introducing the permanent comic relief characters Timon and Pumbaa. Like the movie really balances out stuff like that. Of like you can have something heavy and it lightens up a bit. Like the movie just is constantly trying to kind of like balance its tone so you never feel too bummed out. Or you'll have a moment that's fun and silly like this, for example, with this song, and then you have this crazy tone change where then it's like Nala and Simba are like playing around and then they fall into the elephant graveyard and you can immediately tell they're like somewhere spooky. You know, they're in the place they're not supposed to be that they were trying to get to on purpose, and they meet the hyenas and then everything's like serious again. Like the movie doesn't hesitate to remind you of like, oh yeah, it's like serious when it needs to be and stuff. And I just really like that balance a lot. I sort of remembered about the three hyena characters. They're like the other comic relief. That's why I said there's like five comic relief characters and not just two. Like as individuals, I'm kind of like whatever about them. Like I feel like I wouldn't really remember them as well, but like as a trio, I think they're pretty cool. How they and they're like important too. Of like you get introduced to them here and how they're supposed to, like kill Simba. It's like part of Scar's manipulation thing of like telling Simba like, "Hey, you should go to the elephant graveyard. Aren't you a brave boy?" And then the hyenas are supposed to be there and to kill him, but then they don't, because Mufasa shows up and everything. But yeah, I think they're funny characters, but I like that they're, still treated as a threat at the beginning. I mean, the hyenas are kind of always a threat, really. Like, they eventually kind of take over the Pride Lands and everything. And then the chase scene in the graveyard is pretty cool, too. Um, and then, yeah, Mufasa shows up to save them. And I like that the hyenas bully Scar a bit. Like, it's established early on that they hate lions, even though they work for Scar. Like, they're like, gossiping about it before he ends up popping up into the scene after the whole, like, elephant graveyard thing. And I like that they mentioned that they hate lions, because then you have the part at the end, when Scar admits to Simba of, like, or when he's, like, trying to not die, of, like, oh, yeah, to blame the hyenas, they're responsible for everything, and then the fact that the hyenas just, like, straight up kill Scar at the end, where they're like, oh, I guess we're the enemies, that's what we heard you say, and then you see in the shadows, they, like, literally kill him and everything. So I like that they almost, I don't know if it's, like, exactly foreshadowing, I guess so, but the fact that you get to hear them say early on of, like, they already don't like lions, so they probably would have killed Scar earlier if he had admitted he doesn't really need them. I mean, not that he talks nicely to them anyway. I mean, he that's the thing with his character, is like he manipulates like literally everyone around him and stuff. Like even during the song "Be Prepared," um, the hyenas have all this like funny dialogue, and he's like calling them idiots and whatever, and he's like kind of scaring them into like falling into submission and stuff. Just that whole song is great. I actually want to talk about it a bit. Um, and I think the performance is really interesting. I want to talk about that as well, because I remember when I originally watched the movie, there's a point in the song where Scar's voice changes a bit, and I hope I'm getting like the information for this right. And then I remembered And I didn't notice when I originally watched the movie. It's not something that's like super easy to notice, but I remember like reading oh gosh, who was it? I think it was Jim Cummings. I know it was one of the voices for wait, let me look that up if it was Jim Cummings or Sterling Holloway. Hold on a second. Okay, I wanted to make sure I got it right. I remembered. I'm like, I know it's one of the voice actors for Winnie the Pooh. It does make sense that it's Jim Cummings because like Sterling Holloway was the original one, and I remember this movie came out in the '90s, and I was thinking like, wait, would he even still be alive at that point? Yeah, because I remember reading, and you can like read about it if you look up the song that like Jeremy Irons didn't get to do the whole song and everything, and Jim Cummings had to like finish the song. And you can like if you kind of know where to look for it. I mean, I didn't know the exact point, but I was kind of trying to listen for it in the movie. You can hear where Scar kind of switches voice actors in the song. But you can hear because like Jeremy Irons has like an English accent. It kind of like goes away a little bit during the song, and it's interesting because like the accent's sort of gone a bit, but like the voice still sounds like Scar anyway, so you don't really completely notice. And on some notes, it like kind of did sound like it was Jim Cummings a little bit. Um, I think just because I watched a lot of Winnie the Pooh when I was younger, that I think I just kind of know to listen for like know what his some of the other characters he voices for that like sounds like. But yeah, if I hadn't known like oh yeah they changed voices in the song and stuff, um, and if I wasn't purposely trying to like listen for it, I wouldn't have been able to tell. But I think that's just really interesting because like Jim Cummings is like such a good voice actor anyway, and being able to sound like this character, the fact that this is supposed to be like the big villain song, and the fact that I normally like wouldn't even be able to tell that there was any kind of difference anyway and stuff. What was I going to say with that? To the point where I'm like not even mad about anything because I don't even like um notice it. But yeah, I find that as like a fun fact. And though it does kind of make me wish a little bit if I could find a version of the song. It is I'm assuming probably online where Jeremy Irons does get to do the whole thing. Um I hope I can find one from like around when The Lion King came out. That you know how like when people they get older and their voices kind of sound a bit different. I hope I can find one where he's not like too much older, because I want to see what it sounds like, for like in the time frame of the movie. Anyway, yeah, Be Prepared is like a great villain song, honestly, where he's like explaining his whole plan. Um, that's one of the things I love with Disney movies. I mean, with villains in general, when there's like songs and musicals and stuff, I love like a fun villain song, but especially from like Disney movies, there's like so many good ones, honestly. I think I always think of the ones from like the Disney Renaissance, which I feel like I'm slowly getting into. Um, because I think The Little Mermaid was the start of that, and I had watched that movie, and now I'm watching The Lion King. And I have Beauty and the Beast on DVD already, so I've had that since I was a little kid, so I kind of want to watch that next at some point, in terms of going through these movies. But speaking of that, man, there were so many good ones that came out in the '90s. I kind of wish I was like a kid back then, to see some of those like in theaters and stuff. Because I grew up in the 2000s. I mean, there's like some fantastic Disney movies that came out at that point as well, though some of them, like Lilo and Stitch, I was still like a bit too young for when those specifically came out. But I can't imagine, like, I'm already wowed by this movie, and it was my second time seeing it. I would have lost my shit in theaters if I got to see this movie for the first time on, like, a big screen movie theater. And I feel like I can say that whether in this situation if I was a child or, like, at my current age or whatever. Yeah, it's so good. But anyway, yeah, the song is great. It's a good song. Um, I just keep thinking about that one part when Scar's standing on top of this rock and all of the hyenas are below him. It reminds me of seeing like um shit, I can't remember. I had a point with that, but I didn't write it down in my notes. There was something about seeing that imagery. I'm like, wait, this looks familiar, but I can't think of what it is. Anyway, yeah, I want to talk about Scar a little more actually. He just barely has to do anything to end up becoming king in this. It's like so easy for him. He just has to like, and I'm kind of like boiling it down a little bit, manipulates Simba twice to be in dangerous places, to be in like the elephant graveyard, which ends up being like a failed like assassination attempt basically, and then to have him get into the elephant graveyard to wait for his dad, and then his dad shows up and has to save him, and then it would have worked where like he ends up killing Mufasa, and then then Scar gets Mufasa out of the picture, and then all he has to do at that point, because Simba is the scared little kid who just found his dad's body, of being like, yeah, this is your fault, get out of here, and then he's able to take control. But I forgot that when he's talking to Simba originally, and to get him to stay, there's this part where Simba says this is going to be a really cool surprise or something like that, and he's like, oh, Simba, it's to die for, and I wrote in quotation marks in my notes, I'm like, you're going to get murdered. But just that whole scene visually, when the wildebeests, when they show up, is great. Like, there's this zoom in when Simba first sees them, it's like a zoom in on his face of like realizing he's in danger, and the stampede just showing up and everything. I think they were in 3D. They kind of looked like it, probably because there was so many of them on screen. It was actually a little harder for me to tell. I'm just assuming they were in 3D, but it's still like a really cool sequence, and there's this like choir, and it kind of builds up as the moment goes on until it gets to the point where Mufasa's tossed off the cliff and stuff. Like, it's a short scene, but it's so, everything about it just feels so dramatic. Like, as the audience and stuff, you could tell like, okay, Scar's probably setting up for something terrible to happen to Simba here. It's like very obviously a trap, and Simba doesn't know that. And then you see the wildebeest come, and you're like, oh no, someone's gonna like die here basically. And then I really like the part when Mufasa's tossed off the cliff and stuff, where you get to see like the fear in his eyes when he realizes that Scar isn't going to help him climb up, and then he gets dramatically thrown off the cliff and everything. And then it always kind of hurts when it's the part when the wildebeest leave, and you see Mufasa's body. And I mean, I'm assuming depending how old you are when you're watching, you might think of like, if in your mind you're thinking like, oh, he's not ever going to get up again, or he's just unconscious or something. But then I feel like you can tell, like, oh, this is a character death once Simba, like, goes up to him and the body doesn't move. And there's this one part where Simba just kind of sits under, because Simba's tiny and Mufasa's paw is, like, huge or whatever. And it's, like, kind of tucking yourself under someone's arm. And it's always, for some reason, that part that just looks kind of sad, because he doesn't realize at first, that his like father's dead and stuff. And then of course Scar shows up, and it's really easy for him, where he just like guilt trips Simba into running away. And I like that when Simba is trying to get Scar to end up leaving and giving up his position of king at the end, he uses like the exact same words and everything. Like, at first I was thinking, I was like, why doesn't Scar just kill Simba? But then I was like, okay, wait, he has to make it look like an accident, and then to have the hyenas do it. And Simba never comes back, so I think Scar just assumes or something that the hyenas, oh yeah, because when Simba does eventually come back, Scar's just like, oh shit, you're alive, and he gives this kind of like glare at the hyenas. But I mean, I feel like Simba would have died anyway, because like he ends up in that desert and like basically passes out. So like, if Timon and Pumbaa hadn't found him, oh yeah, something else I want to just say about this movie really quick. The lighting in it is so good, honestly, especially for any scenes where it's like sunset or sunrise. Like, there's so many visuals and lighting with the sun. I mean, you literally see it on like the DVD as well, of like the sun shining through when Simba's born. I'm not specifically talking about that kind of lighting, but more so the lighting of when the sun goes down or up. It just looks so good, honestly. It's stuff like that, or just some of the animation sometimes, or like the part when Mufasa appears as a ghost, where I'm noticing visually just how fantastic those moments look. And I think like there's no way you'd be able to get some of this across in like live action. Um, but yeah, it's like good timing. It's like that. What was I going to say? That like balancing the tone of like you have that really heavy and emotional scene of like Mufasa's death and then Timon and Pumbaa showing up. But they're but then it's kind of a nice point where the movie slows just a little bit after such a heavy moment. Where they basically raise Simba. You get the whole Hakuna Matata song and stuff, and that's a really nice scene too, where it's like like a growing up montage. But I'm actually glad that song's there because I remember when I watched the movie and you get to Mufasa's death and I thought it was kind of gonna be like, oh, maybe they wouldn't have fun songs anymore, but then you get Hakuna Matata and I think it works out. I almost thought it was gonna be like kind of like Mulan or something. You know how you get to a certain point in that movie and then there's no more songs after that. They could have easily gone that route or only had like serious ones, but I like that they have Hakuna Matata right afterwards, where it's like, okay, we can still have sort of fun. I mean, other than the like Timon distraction song later on, I think that's the last of like the yeah, because there's only like two more songs left now that I think about it. It's just that song and then Can You Feel the Love Tonight, and that one's more of like a romantic ballad. So I guess Hakuna Matata is like the last kind of like fun song in a sense. But yeah, it's a fun song. I forgot you also get like backstory stuff for like Timon and Pumbaa and why they're outcasts. But then you also end up having Lion King 2.5 or whatever, where you end up getting to see like their full backstories. Which I think I remember watching that. I was kind of about it. I didn't feel like it needed to exist. But I think mostly because Hakuna Matata does touch on their backstory just enough already of like, hey, why are these two characters just out here in like the jungle or whatever. Um, I feel like it explains just enough where I'm like, they're cool characters, but I feel like I don't really need to know more. But I love the saxophone when the song is almost over. I think it's the point when like Simba's like an adult and the saxophone comes in or something. So it's like somewhere around there. But it makes it sound like a little jazzy. It's nice. I'm surprised because they introduced during that song of like, oh, we just eat bugs out here and stuff, and Simba's disappointed he can't eat meat. I'm surprised he doesn't end up like malnourished or something, because like he's like a child when he originally meets Timon and Pumbaa, so he'd probably need that's like probably the point when you need the most like nutrients, but then he's eating bugs and like lions aren't they have to eat like meat and stuff, so I'm surprised he didn't end up growing horribly weak, especially because it looked like he was either physically stronger or on the same like physical level as Scar. Not that Scar is physically strong himself or anything. Like he even admits that, at least compared to Mufasa. Um, but yeah, I'm surprised he even had like the energy to like get in that physical fight with Scar later on in the movie, or crossing the desert or anything, or didn't grow up like not as strong as he's supposed to be because he had to eat all those bugs. But whatever. And I forgot that Matthew Broderick voices adult Simba. I've only ever heard him in like um, musicals and stuff, like in terms of him singing like after I had originally watched this movie. And the thing is, I didn't know who he was when I originally watched this movie. Not in my head that I was thinking like, oh yeah, that's just the voice of adult Simba or whatever. I just thought like, okay, they have this person voicing him and stuff. And then eventually I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off and I was like, oh, he plays this character in The Lion King. um but in my head I don't even think of that, and that's kind of the nice thing with this movie or some of the other older like Disney movies. I'm not even thinking in my head of like, oh, they have a so and so, this like famous person voicing this character, because they all do so good anyway. Like they have Nathan Lane, for example, as Timon, and he's great as well. He's playing like a really funny character, but he also gets to sing. But it's kind of funny hearing both of them in the same movie. Now that there's a musical movie called The Producers. They do a remake of in 2005 where they get to do like a ton of singing together, and now I kind of want to watch that again. Um, but yeah, I forgot they were in a movie together already with this one. Okay, so but yeah, both of them do like a really good job in this, like singing and everything. Um, I'm surprised that Scar, because you get to check in with Scar, I think like right after this or something. that he kept Zazu alive this entire time because he ends up being in the bone jail. I think he's trapped in the bones of what looked like a ribcage or something. I'm yeah, I'm surprised he even got kept alive at all. Not just because there's like a food shortage, but also because every character seems to find Zazu annoying. But I think it's probably just keeping him alive for funsies. But yeah, it's crazy that like once Scar's in charge, everyone in Pride Rock is starving. It's funny to me it like ends up getting fixed at the end, but I think there is a bit of a oh, hold on. Okay, I got interrupted. What was I saying? Oh yeah, everyone ends up starving to death. And then it gets fixed at the end. When I first watched the movie, I didn't realize there was like a time skip or anything, even though they show like a baby being born at the end. I thought like, oh, the rains put out the fire, and then suddenly it's like, I don't know why in my head I thought, oh, it's like the next couple days later, and then everything's suddenly green, and I thought, oh, that just feels unrealistic. But then the baby's born at the end, so definitely some time has passed, and it shows that like it's restored to the way it needs to be. But I find it interesting when like some of the lionesses confront Scar about it later, where he's like, oh, you're not doing well with hunting, and they're like, I think it was like Simba's mom or something, and she's like, oh, all the herds have moved on, we need to leave Pride Rock, and Scar just refuses. I think because he just wants to be king there, so badly and everything. And he's gonna, even to the point of willing to starve everyone to death. I feel like that's like such a serious thing to have for the end of the movie. I find it interesting. But just this whole beef with Mufasa is interesting to me, where like even once he's king and he's won and Mufasa's dead and no one suspects of him killing Mufasa because they just think that like he died or whatever Scar ends up telling them. But like anytime someone brings up Mufasa, he like freaks out and stuff. So it's definitely like comparing the two of them and whatever. It like almost, it's like just enough things that makes me curious enough where I'm like, damn, maybe I should check out the I think there's like a prequel movie on Mufasa, which sounds like an interesting concept. As I'm like curious enough about him and Scar as siblings, I feel like this movie drops like just enough crumbs where I'm like, not that I feel like it deserved a movie. And then I remembered it's one of the live action ones, and I'm like, no. That's the funny thing. You'd think with it being live action and they're animals anyway, you think like, oh, it would translate fine. But if they just look like normal animals, but they're having to be just as, they can't be as expressive as they are in like the animated Lion King movies and stuff, and then it doesn't feel like the same characters because you like literally can't have the same character designs. That if anything, it makes me almost kind of just grumpy that there's live action versions where they just look like normal animals. I can't imagine normal animals but with the expressiveness in the animation or the emotion or anything, because they can't show those faces, make those same faces and everything. Um, anyway, let me just move on. I don't mean to complain about so many of the live action remakes, but I just kind of keep sort of remembering those exist as I talk about some of these. Anyway, there's this part where Timon and Pumbaa and Simba are lying in the grass or something, and I like the whole joke of like Timon thinking that the stars are fireflies, and Simba's talking about the stuff he learned from his dad, and then Pumbaa's actually says something smart for once of like, yeah, they're balls of gas, and I think Timon makes fun of him, except that Pumbaa's the only one that actually ends up being correct on that. I always think that's kind of funny as a joke when you have like a character that's treated as very dumb, and then every once in a while they'll say something like really really smart, but it's something that the other characters don't know, so they just assume the character's like dumb or whatever. I don't really know if that's referred to, but I always find that kind of funny. And then I like when Nala ends up trying to find Simba, where she's like, oh, you're alive, and he doesn't want to be king, and they have this argument scene where she's like, hey, we're all starving, we need you, you're kind of our only hope, and he's like, nope, no one needs me, because he still, thinks he's at fault for like his dad being dead and sort of running away from his grief, to the point where he, is finally able to go back after the conversation with his ghost dad, and then he almost ends up beating Scar and being like, oh, that doesn't work on me anymore, I've gotten over my past. But then once, Simba has to tell the lionesses and everything of like him being the one to kill Mufasa, or Simba doing it and stuff, then Scar is able to kind of take advantage of that and confront him and everything, and it just leads to a really good scene. But anyway, I'll touch on that in a while. Um, and then yeah, then you have "Can You Feel the Love Tonight." I do like that one as a love song, um, and I like that it's set over this sort of these scenes of like Simba and Nala just bonding, kind of reconnecting while they're like running around doing stuff in the jungle, and then it sort of turns into like romance, but it doesn't start that way. I actually kind of like that. I feel like that's probably more realistic of anything. Of like, they're childhood friends. They were close. They also haven't seen each other in. I mean, probably not literally years because they're lions, but like, it's definitely been some time. They're like adults now, so they're kind of reconnecting and then realizing they have feelings for each other. I think that's pretty nice. But then it's also like lyrically about like, Simba's debating telling the truth, and like Nala knows that he's hiding something, and she's like, oh, why isn't he gonna accept being king? What is he hiding and stuff? That's what I really like with the songs in these movies, actually, where they fit the roles of like, this one being a love song, or like Hakuna Matata being about like not worrying about stuff and growing up in the jungle and everything, but then it also has a lot of lines and things about like what the characters are currently feeling and stuff, and that the songs are it's kind of serving multiple purposes and everything. I think that's pretty neat. But yeah, then the part when Mufasa's ghost shows up is pretty cool. Just like the whole animation of that and everything, I end up really liking. And then yeah, then you have the fight with Simba and Scar. I like that Simba almost wins, and then Scar like whispers to him. They're in that same position of like the Mufasa on the cliff thing earlier. I just love the part when he whispers like the, oh, I killed Mufasa, like, because he thinks he's about to kill Simba here, um, and he's won, and it's just kind of like rubbing it in a little bit, and then it like freaks Simba out, and that's actually what causes Scar to lose, where Simba forces him to. Sorry, the phone ended up ringing. Anyway, every time I get interrupted, I forget what I'm saying. Damn it. But yeah, the whispering thing is good, and then it causes Simba to win. Or just having the line of the hero saying to the villain, especially for like a family friendly. Not that everything in this movie is family friendly, but you know what I mean. Um, of saying like you don't deserve to live. I was kind of surprised by that, even though Simba doesn't actually plan to kill um, Scar. He was just gonna exile him, and then Scar ends up starting a fight. I feel like I can't really take their fight seriously. I mean, they're probably fighting the way actual lions do or whatever, but I think it's just the slow mo during parts of it. I feel very iffy in slow mo. Sometimes it's used to make things more dramatic, but sometimes it just comes off as making things less dramatic to me. I think it just depends on the context, but here I kind of wish it didn't have the slow mo because the rest of their fight is fine. I forgot how lions like fight each other where they have to stand up on the back paws or whatever. I mean, I'm assuming all the behavior in this movie is like how lions actually move and stuff. It kind of just feels that way, but also I noticed in the credits they give a bunch of like oh, special thanks to like various zoos. And I mean, with this being a Disney movie from like the 90s and stuff, I'm assuming they're like taking the effort to like actually study the lions and stuff. Which I think part of makes this movie like more believable and stuff. But yeah, it's the slow mo in the fight specifically that I didn't really care for. But yeah, I do like that the hyenas end up killing Scar, where he ends up falling down the cliff and he's still alive, and he's like, "Oh, my friends," and whatever, and they're basically just like, "Oh, were you just talking shit about us?" And then they kill him, and I always think it's interesting with some of the older Disney movies the way they do some of the villains' deaths, where it's like kind of graphic stuff, but sometimes they showed and sometimes they don't. Where it's like they only show the shadows here of like the hyenas attacking Scar, and then it goes to the next scene. Or I always think of like Clayton's death in Tarzan, where they have him like the hanging on the the ropes and stuff when it's like these really dramatic like ways the villains like die or whatever. Um, oh, so I already talked about Elton John. Oh yeah, I don't notice this for every animated movie I watch. But I liked that with this one they have like entire animation teams listed for each character where they'll have the name and like all the people that animated them on stuff, and that's kind of how the movie starts. Rather, rather than for most movies where it's like here's the person who voiced them or whatever, or like sometimes the animators are listed like later on. I like how they did it here instead. I think Cats Don't Dance also did a similar thing if I remember right. But I always appreciate it for movies like this where I could tell with the animation for the characters where I'm just like, whoa, with how like fluid it is and stuff. So you know what? I'm glad the animation teams like that takes up like a big chunk of the credits and how it's listed for like each character and stuff. Because that's also the nice thing with this movie, is that there actually isn't a ton of characters. I think it just kind of helps make them all stand out and stuff. Um, and then I'd forgotten that I was watching the special edition. I thought I saw something about like the animation being kind of touched up a bit, judging from some of the things in the credits, or else I might be misunderstanding that. I don't know. But I'm assuming so because it's like the special edition from 2003, which actually that isn't a big gap between like 1994 and 2003. Um, but yeah, this movie, special edition or not, is really good. It's kind of funny because like before I'd end up finding it at Goodwill, and I wasn't even specifically trying to find this one. I just go there and I kind of just see what's there basically. Um, my opinion on The Lion King I think had been that I liked it, and that was kind of about it. I think that's my opinion on a lot of Disney movies actually, except for some of my favorites. But then I rewatched it, and I'm just like, that was really, really, really good, but also that I really, really enjoyed it. And sometimes those two things don't overlap, where I can say that I like really liked a movie, but then thought it was okay, or the reverse of like it's really good, but I'm like whatever about it. But here, no, it's that I thought like quality wise it's really good, but I also genuinely enjoyed it, and now I'm really happy to have it on DVD. Um, but yeah, next Disney movie might be, because I guess I'm in like a Disney mode now. Especially with some of the Disney Renaissance movies, I kind of want to see if I can find some of them and stuff. It might be Beauty and the Beast, just also because I have that on DVD anyway. But then I was also going through our VHS movies, and I didn't remember us having 101 Dalmatians. That's not part of the Disney Renaissance. That's from like the 70s, I think. I think like 60s or 70s or something. But that's when animation wise I really love as well, so I might give that a watch at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on The Lion King. This ended up longer than I thought it was gonna be, but I had so many kind of like tangents I needed to go on and whatever. But yeah, good movie, recommend it. I don't know if I'll ever track down the sequel or something. Because I've heard that people like the sequel. I watched it like probably like 3 years ago or something. I'm only just thinking about it just because I'd watched the first one and stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Bye bye.